Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Jason Otley. Great to see all of you who are just now entering the room. You'll hear my voice for the next 45 minutes as you enter. And if you do exit, make sure you come back. There's some background noise here. I'm in Cabo, Mexico on family vacation. So just enjoy the theme music. I'm real relaxed tonight, this Friday evening. The first time I've moderated a session without a suit. So we'll see how this goes. But I'm also in Mexico and I wasn't going to be hot trying to wear no suit. We have an esteemed panel tonight. There's a lot of information that you guys are going to hear. But what I want you to really pay attention to is everyone's lived experience. One thing that I've learned in life is we need to pay more attention to those who have already been to where we're trying to go, because we can help to navigate not entering into some of the pitfalls that we've entered into. There's no sense in you recreating something on your own from scratch if we can assist you in your journey, especially if you're African-American or a student of color. We know that journey is very tiresome and you need all the support you can get. And so we want to be that Mecca for you as we've been this week, but more especially tonight as we talk about jobs and careers. I want to ask a series of questions tonight. This first question, I'll have each of the panelists talk about what they do in their profession. So we won't have formal introductions from the panel tonight, be a little chill, more copacetic, but our panel tonight is inclusive of Latanya Bynum, Olivia Umorin, and Dr. Desiree Strickland. And so you all are in for a treat this evening. Without further ado, the first question, and I'll start off with you, Latanya, Olivia, and then Dr. Des. With the Great Resignation, I know our students have been following this, undergrad or graduate students. We are losing, right, a number of individuals in healthcare and public health and education and every industry we can think about. We're losing them. And so I want our graduates, soon to be graduates, to be optimistic about this time that we're in. And what advice can you share to graduates to keep in mind or be thinking about as they travail and navigate through this notion of a great resignation?
Yes, great question. Thank you so much, Dr. Otley. And thank you so much to Leonore for having me. The Great Resignation was something that I too was a part of. I know that when COVID-19 hit, everyone was kind of scrambling for what to do. What is this going to look like? And at the time I was working in tech. I was actually a technical editor working for a company called Gainwell Technologies and also running my consulting business. So again, my name is Latanya Bynum. I am the founder and CEO of URA Resource Center, LLC. And my goal is really to provide those resources for students who are looking at the Great Resignation as not only an opportunity, but just trying to gather resources for how to fend for themselves throughout the pandemic as it's still going on. So one of the things that I would share as far as advice is because so many meetings are happening, you definitely want to stay engaged with the Association of Black Researchers, but also check into LinkedIn. So how many of you have a LinkedIn profile? I know that I was able to stay connected to my network and even with Leonore through LinkedIn social media. So just prettying up your social media, and because people are really nosy, Great Resignation, we're all on social media. So they want to know, hey, what is Olivia doing with her newsletter? Is she still kicking that out weekly? So some of the resources are there. We just haven't quite tapped into them. So my advice is people are going to be searching for you. What are you doing? Be available on at least LinkedIn and have a profile that's an all-star profile, which means it's a complete profile with all of your pictures and your details. And think of yourself as an industry professional right now. Don't wait until you graduate. Think of yourself as an industry professional, whether that is in tech, whether that is in public health, finance, whatever industry you're thinking of, but seek out those people, those contacts, those go-to industry leaders through LinkedIn. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, great. And Olivia, and then Dr. Des.
Sure, and thank you, Dr. Otley and Leonore, for having me here today. I'm excited for this panel and to share the stage with some amazing individuals. As far as the Great Resignation, I would say that this time, especially if you're currently a graduate student, you can use this time to build your confidence. I know that's probably not a concrete thing to have, but it really does translate into how you're going to be able to get jobs after graduation. So build your confidence and start now to think about what your brand is. So if somebody would ask me, what is my brand? My brand is being able to talk to strangers and have good conversations with people. I enjoy doing that. My brand is being able to network with people. My brand is not data analytics. My brand is not anything that has to do with numbers. And I know that for myself. I know my limitations, but I also know my strengths. So once you're able to build that confidence and you know your brand, then you can be able to get in front of other people and confidently say what you can bring to the table, what you can do to support whatever initiatives or efforts that a certain company or organization is doing. And from there, everything else will come easy. But I think that that's the starting point, that sometimes when people are trying to figure out what their career should be, what their next step should be after graduation, there's that misstep. I've talked to lots of people that they're like, I don't think I'm good enough for this position, or I don't think that I deserve to be there. And I'm like, you got like 5 to 10 years of experience. You do deserve to be there, but you have to believe that you deserve to be there. So those are two things that I would say: build your confidence and know your brand. From there, everything else should be smooth sailing.
And so I guess I will go next. So again, thank you all for having me. So I'm Dr. Des, founder, CEO of Young Black and Professional. I would say that with the Great Resignation going on, just to kind of piggyback off of what Olivia said and then what LaTanya said too, I would say to make sure that you are building your network during this time, because that is going to be one of the key things, because a lot of times it's not what you know, it's who you know. So, and who you know can definitely put you in positions that your resume can't even open the door to get you into. So, and what that looks like, that can look like a lot of different things. It can look like your LinkedIn account, making sure that that is polished, it's professional, making sure that, it has everything going on, all the bells and whistles, and making sure that you're connecting with the people in your industry. And you're not only connecting with them, you're reaching out to them and you're talking to them. Like, I've talked to so many students, recent graduates, who are just intimidated to message someone on LinkedIn, are intimidated to, slide in their DMs and ask for a call. But I'm just like, no, if you want it, you got to go get it. Like, I tell them closed mouths don't get fed. Like, if you want it, you got to go get it. And that's just one of the things that I think is so important, like having informational interviews with people just to understand exactly what they do. Because a lot of times we can look at someone's position and we not even know what they really do on a day-to-day basis, but we think we want to do that. And then we talk to them and we're just like, oh, no, that's not for me, but, just talking to them, building up that network, and getting your name out there, and then enjoying the conversations when you have them. Like, don't get in the conversation and just talk about yourself, but talk about them and see what their trajectory was to get where they are today. And then see what kind of information you can take from that and utilize. So yeah, making sure that you network during this time, if you're job searching, is going to be a huge key to help you just kind of jump a lot of hurdles.
The days that was fire. If you want it, you got to go get it. I'm sitting on the beach and I'm like, my goodness, I'm about to start another business before I get home. If you want it, you better go get it. Dr. Des, I love that. Build your network during this time. Students, you heard this, the Great Resignation. We don't know when it's leaving, it's here. And so what are you doing while it's here? You heard Olivia talk about building your brand and knowing what your skill set is. If it's networking with people, that's your brand. Your next step after graduation can often lead to a misstep, she mentioned. And that misstep is sometimes tethered to a lack of confidence, right? So your brand and your confidence is important. And then LaTanya kind of kicked us off when she said, think of yourself as an industry professional already. I will say on LinkedIn, I'm on it every day, 4 or 5 times a day. That's the only social media that I'm on that consistently. You're probably like, well, why? Why are you on it like that? Why are you not on Instagram, TikTok? I don't got time for that. I'm out here trying to make moves. And the moves are being made in LinkedIn, not in having an account, but engaging with those who have accounts, right? Mentors and those who are in positions that you want to be in. They are some of the most kind-hearted people on LinkedIn. You send them a message, I'm looking for a job, I need some help. Most people will respond. I have found the last 2 jobs on LinkedIn. I'm a Chief Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Officer, Arlington Public Schools, Arlington, Virginia. I found that job on LinkedIn. Don't sleep on LinkedIn, y'all. All right, question. We have a series of questions. Those who are just joining us, I just saw the number increase. I hope y'all joined as soon as you heard Dr. Des say, if you want it, you got to go after it. That'll probably be the theme for the rest of tonight. The next question deals with coming out of the question about the Great Resignation, those who are looking for jobs. How important, panel, and we'll go in the same order, how important is research? Those who have research experience in public health. Part 2 of that question is it needed? And then part 3 of that question is it the wave of the future, right? Can you see this 10, 20 years from now, the importance of having research tied into public health? Talk about it.
Yeah, so great question. When I think of research, I think of some of my basic skills from just growing up at home with my parents. And I think of just how I used to look up phone numbers to call, to get mail. I don't know how many of you get those pamphlets and stuff. I always wanted to be like really up on it when it came to Walt Disney, Disneyland, like all of the information. So I was always about finding things and recording radio songs and stuff. So some of those basic research skills that we've had just as young people growing up, and then when you get into college, then you start doing research papers, finding credible resources. And after I graduated from college, then I moved into working at the, excuse me, hold on one second. I'm not in Cabos, but I'm at home with these 3 children. My apologies. But
you ain't got to apologize. We informal tonight. I got a t-shirt on, some jeans. We just dropping knowledge.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all working with. Yeah, so when you're in college, you're doing those research papers and really just trying to connect with your professors on topics that they might be seeking tenure for. So when I think of research, I think about all of the things that really make me excited about public health or technology. So I really want you guys to start thinking about what are topics that are really interesting to you, or you see grant funding announcements in the news for. One of the things that I found out later on, nobody told me when I was in school, was that you got to follow the gravy train. So whenever there's funding for research, depending on the topic, like COVID-19, you got a lot of the CARES Act money for not just business owners, but then also for industry professionals. You have a lot of those call centers opening up to do those contact tracing contracts. And so you just want to always follow the money. So when I think of research, I think of the things that interest you the most and where that information could be found. And one of the resources that I would like for everyone to tap into when it comes to technology, and I am all about some population health management. So I don't call it public health when I'm trying to make money in the tech world. I call it population health management, but just learning the lingo, HIMSS.org, HIMSS.org. It is my go-to resource when it comes to talking the tech lingo. And so when it comes to research, I'm always looking for the next wave. What's going on next? What's popular? Where's the money at? Where's the contract? So you definitely want to be checking out that website if you're trying to transition from school into that tech space where you see a lot of opportunities.
Thank you, LaTanya. Olivia, as you dive into this question, as LaTanya said, follow the money. I love that, finding the grants. Where's the money? That's the train I'm on. What additional reasons would you share with students tonight as the importance of research? We all know that in their field, they are doing research, whether it's quant or qual, but beyond school, into their careers, the importance of continuing research.
Sure. I think that once you continue in your career, you will find that research is often the foundation of every other industry. So health policy, you have to have somebody that's doing research to inform the policy. You have, community health. Somebody has to do the research about whatever community that they're talking about. Even in tech and data, somebody has to be there to do the research to inform the projects and just overall mission of what a company is trying to do. So that's one way that research is important, and it's always going to be important because things change even by the minute. But I think that research is also important as somebody who's trying to figure out what you want to do. So I started in research. That was my first job after college. I worked as a clinical research coordinator at Mass General. And at that time, I was thinking of going to medical school. If it wasn't for that research position, I don't think I would have made the transition to public health and now health policy, because I was working with medical doctors that also had MPH degrees. And then I didn't even know what public health was. I didn't know that an MPH was a thing. And I remember sitting down, having a conversation with one of the PIs on the study I was working on. And she told me, hey, listen, if you're not passionate about medical school, don't go into it, because you have to have a very great amount of passion to make it through that type of program and training. So I had her, I had access to other people, I had access to other research. And this is also another thing that I would give as a recommendation. Don't wait until you see an opportunity on LinkedIn or on Indeed or wherever. You can, especially if you're a student, I always tell people, use your student email to the max, because once you're done being a student, it's like, people still talk to you, don't get me wrong, but people love students because they always want to be able to pour into a student and give back. And, there's just a soft spot for students. So definitely utilize that, but also utilize your professors, reach out to them. If they have studies that they're working on, reach out to them, ask if they need help. And this is going back to your brand too. So if you know that you're good at writing, that's something that you can take to a professor. Hey, here's a list, or here's a few examples of some of my writing content. Do you need any support writing a publication, a draft publication? And there you have a publication for yourself that you can put on a CV. So I think that research is definitely very important in public health. I don't think that public health would be here without research. So I think that also it's a great way to start into the public health space and kind of just get an enormous amount of information about different fields that maybe you otherwise wouldn't have known about.
Olivia, that's a great response, a gateway into public health for those who are still trying to figure it out. You also said, though, someone who does the research to inform the project, right? Somebody got to do it, right? So it's almost like a recession-proof job. There's always projects and there's always research, and somebody got to do the research. I think it's a very poignant point. Dr. Des, less than 2% of the population has a doctorate degree. You, my friend, are one of those in that 2%. Can you talk to the students tonight, those who are desirous of a doctorate degree, how important research continues to be once they've crossed over, let's call it, those burning sands?
Yeah, so research, especially in public health and just honestly in any profession, is so important. Now, I feel like a lot of people, when you mention research, they think about it in the traditional sense of like, okay, you're out there, you're gathering, you're collecting data, whether it's qualitative, quantitative type research that you're doing, you're putting out a publication, a report, yada, yada, yada. A lot of people think about that formal method, but a lot of times in public health, I feel like we use a lot of informal type research methods as well. So I think that one of the things in just general, you may not think of as research, but staying up to date with what's going on in public health. We know it changes so much, like through seeing COVID, through all these bills, policies, things like that. You keeping up to date with the research, with, what's going on. That's research. That's, that's kind of keeping your kind of base updated on different things. And then that's helpful to whatever organization that you're with, because they can see that, oh, wow, you really are knowledgeable about this and you are up to date on these guidelines, whether it's opioid guidelines or whatever it may be. So I think that that's kind of the first thing. Research is going to be integrated in whatever you do in this field. So it's something that you can't shy away or back away from. And I think that a lot of times, when I was going through getting my master's and my doctorate, master's, we had to do a thesis, and the doctorate, we had to do our dissertation. And I had to do research in both. I did both qualitative and quantitative research. And one of the things that I found, I feel like that was most helpful, was that some of the things that, that I did myself, like I conducted focus groups and I conducted all this, and I had to get IRB approval and things like that. But right now, the way the world is, it's a lot of research that goes on that's not IRB approved, and that honestly doesn't have to be IRB approved. You may not get it published in a journal, but it's a lot that goes on. And as far as we have social media, you can put up a poll right now on Instagram and get instant results and get like 500 people answering your poll about a certain question. That's research. And, if you formulate it correctly, if you do it correctly, you can write up your own article about it. So I think that kind of speaks to, a lot of times people are waiting for the research to come to them, waiting for the opportunities to come to them. They're waiting for the professor to come to them, or, whatever it may be, that opportunity. But you can kind of build up your credibility yourself a little bit, by doing some of these type of things, like reaching out, like putting up different polls and different things like that, and pulling together like an informal study. And then a lot of times that can be called like a preliminary study. And then you could kick it off and do actual formal research with it, with those preliminary results, and get some actual, results, things like that. But I think that, when we think about research, like I said, it's going to be integrated in everything. And then also another important aspect, and I think that a lot of these are kind of like different jobs sometimes. So like you can be the person who is actually conducting like the literature reviews and doing all of that, and that could be one set of your job. You could be the person that's actually out there conducting the focus groups, conducting, developing the surveys and different things like that. You could be the person doing the data, analyzing the data. And then you could also be the person that is looking at this data, looking at this research and interpreting it and developing programs and actually putting the data to action. So I think that, it's a lot of different aspects of research that go into a lot of the job searching and just a lot of jobs in general. It's going to be something you have to know something about, and you have to integrate it some kind of way. But just keep an open mind that it's a lot of different ways to integrate research in a lot of the things that you do and that you want to do.
Other days, I'm glad you brought up informal and formal research, which will tie into a question later about resumes, right? Because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And if you can't manage it, you can't master it. And I know all these students tonight want to be a master of something, and data is important. Olivia, I'm going to come back to you really quick with a question from the chat. I think something you said, Olivia, may have sparked this question, so I want you to answer it. Doing research seems to offer a lot of benefits for a student, and a big portion of it is due to the professors or lab instructors that gave them that opportunity. So the question is, how do you keep that connection alive and expand that network?
Sure. So I think that networking and just keeping connections alive, I always say that it's like keeping any type of relationship, whether it's a friendship or, you have a significant other or something, you have to maintain communication. If you don't maintain communication, then you fall out. And maybe you catch the person later on down the road, maybe you don't, but it's up to you and kind of really up to both individuals to maintain that communication. Like there's some people that I met in college that gave me opportunities, and I'm still in contact with them today. There's other people that gave me opportunities. I haven't talked to them in like 7 years. So it's like, it depends on your level of interest in the person. And expanding your network. Again, if you're a student, if you inform your professor or whoever it is, your interest, and you're like, I'm really trying to find more people to talk to about this, most of them will be happy to connect you with other people, whether it's within the university or at an external organization. Because once you're in research, you and you're like 20, maybe 15, 20 years, even 10 years into your career, there's going to be so many people that you come across in your career that they stick around, and you can just say off the top of your head, oh, I know this person is doing research on heart disease. I know this person is doing diabetes research, and they will have their own personal network that they can introduce you to. So it's really all about asking, not being afraid to ask for what you want. At the end of the day, you know, for me, I was like, if I'm going to be paying tuition at anywhere, I need to get my money's worth in this place. So whatever, I was asking everybody everything. And that's what I would tell anybody to do. If you're trying to maintain your network, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want and what you need.
Yeah, the confidence is becoming a natural theme so far in the first 25 minutes of our discussion. I love hearing that. Tanya, I want you to answer this question that was in the chat. Someone posted that they're an early career public health researcher and currently looking for a remote full-time job in global health. And Tanya, I know that you are in the tech world as well. And so I know you probably used to seeing questions like this. With an MPH degree, is it possible, right, to work remote full-time in global health, or should I consider doing a Peace Corps first before working?
Yeah, great question. Here's my best advice. You know, remote work with the Great Resignation and COVID-19, all of these jobs seems like they went remote. You know, organizations were trying to find out how to keep their employees sane once, but then also, you know, use some of these virtual tools like Zoom. I feel like, you know, most of us are probably zoomed out from just being in the pandemic. So I feel like, you know, whether it's global health, statewide, county, you know, if you're in a ward, depending on where you are and what interests you have on how local you want to do public health, opportunities are there. And I always tell my clients, search by pay and not by title. So you might be thinking, I want to be a health educator. And word to the wise, I'm a health educator, but I never search for health educator by job title because the pay is really not there. But that's a whole nother webinar for a different time. But what I would say, if you're looking for global health positions, really go to Indeed. Indeed is always my go-to. Go to Indeed, search by pay. So in the what field, you're going to type in and say your dream number is 100,000. Just start there. Type in $100,000 in the what field, and then in the where field, don't control for where you live at, because with remote work, for example, I'm in Conway, Arkansas, but the headquarters for where I was working at that time was in Tyson, Virginia. So you never know where these global organizations are located. So under the where field, type in remote, just leave it remote, and then it'll open up so many opportunities. And so what you want to do is just kind of explore the landscape, because you don't know. I never knew that as a health educator that I also was called a technical editor in the tech space. And so that was a $5 raise and honestly, I probably worked about 30 minutes a day, as opposed to working for the government where I really earned my paycheck, 40 hours. I probably brought a lot of that research work home, you know, doing SaaS, you're kind of flipping code, trying to wonder if you place something the right way. But global health opportunities are endless. If you want to just get on the internet, and I would advise you to search for at least 7 to 10 organizations that are doing global health, and really try to think about your passion. You know, is that humanitarian service, you know, human trafficking? Like, what parts of global health do you want to tackle? And really use train.org to kind of come up with some emerging topics that are relevant to public health or global health, and see what's out there and what courses are being offered. And so those continuing education hours will be coupled with your degree and help you to develop that niche, and also help you with that lingo. So if you can say a couple of the words that are mentioned in the job description, you're like, oh, okay, I know what I'm talking about. So when you get to the interview, they're like, okay, we need her. So, or him. So what I would recommend is to really use the tools and resources through Indeed.com, search for positions by pay, and then look for those organizations, and definitely connect with some of those leaders, because the thing about these jobs in public health and global health, you want to be a referral. So if there's someone on LinkedIn who actually works at an organization you want to work at, you want to reach out to them and send them a personal note and say, hi, I'm really encouraged by your professional achievements, and I really love what you're doing. If you have a couple of minutes to chat, I'd like to know how you got your foot in the door. So I think just some of those initial, like, just relationship building conversations is going to get you one step in. And what happened to me was people would reach out to me, and I actually got referral bonuses for bringing people in. So I brought in about 3 people. So that's good money. So we're happy to always bring in people. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Tanya, that helps a lot. You know, what you said at the end, we'll have to do this in another session, but there needs to be conversation between us and among students. How do we allow our students to be sought after? Many of them are seeking jobs, you know, putting in applications every day, every 5 minutes, some of them, right? But how do they get to the point, not for this discussion, but how do they get to the point where they're the ones being sought after? And I think that we've gained that skill set as we've been in our professions for quite some time. And it's certainly something we need to pass along to the next generation. If you're just tuning in, it's 31 minutes after the hour. This is National Black Researchers Week. Friday night session is Student Professional Development panel discussion. You are joined by 3 amazing panelists. They're dropping fire. I mean, I feel like I'm in the seat of a student taking notes. LaTanya Bynum, Olivia Morum, and Dr. Dez is all bringing it to you real tonight on this Friday evening. Dr. Dez, I got the next question, and it ties into kind of what you left off before. This is really dealing with resumes, and students are very interested in knowing what is the most important thing in a resume. After speaking with folks on the HR side, because y'all know, just because your resume may look good to us, there's still an HR department. They're skilled in a totally different way, looking for different words or looking for data, right? And so I want the panel to start tonight, and I want to start with you, Dr. Dez. What things should students include in their resumes right now as they're preparing for their first few jobs out of college, right? You can talk, Dr. Dez, around sections or terminology. I'm gonna let you take the floor though.
Okay, so I would say that one of the major things is that your resume needs to not tell the employer what you want, but tell them what they want to hear. So I see a lot of resumes like with an objective statement up top that says you're a recent graduate seeking opportunities and blah, blah, blah. And that's just telling me what you want to do. Like, I'm just like, all right, that's nice to know, but what can you do for me? That is really, what we want to know when we're reviewing resumes and looking at them. What can you bring to our team to help make us successful? So I want you to, not have an objective statement anymore, but have a career summary at the top of your resume, have a summary of your skills. And then a lot of times, a lot of recent graduates, they're like, well, I don't have many skills, yada, 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 but you do. And you have to think about those things that you were good at in class. What are some of those things that stood out? Because you can put reports that you did in class, you can put certain things that you feel like are reflective of your professional skills on your resume. You are not limited to that. You paid all this money for that degree and you're not going to highlight stuff on your resume where you got it. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So, thinking about that, letting them know what they want to hear is like the mindset you should go in when you're trying to edit your resume or thinking about your resume. And then, having a career summary section. And also, I like to make sure that you're including actual numbers in your resume. And by, numbers, I mean, you're showing like tangible results of things that you've actually done. And a lot of times, some things may be hard to measure. But, there are some things that are measurable, like, did you raise a certain amount of money? How much money did you raise? Over what period of time did you raise this money? Did you manage a certain amount of funds? Did you manage a certain amount of people? What's that number for the amount of people that you managed? Just did you improve a process by a certain percentage? Did you improve? What did you improve? What did you help? I think that is one of the key things that you need to think about, because when I'm reading through, like, and when a recruiter or whoever is reading through your resume, they're going to spend about 7 seconds skimming. They're going to just skim, your resume, and then they're going to pass it along if they feel like it might be a good fit. And when they're skimming, you want to make sure that you have a lot of those things that stand out to them. Like, I like to always tell my clients to make sure they include, like, in their experience section, so they can always include like a key accomplishment section that they can break out from each job. And then you can highlight 2 or 3 key accomplishments that you have for that job. And those are things that, like, my eyes would be drawn to. I'll be like, oh, key accomplishments. Okay, you accomplishing things. So, and that's what, that's what you want an employer, future employer, to be able to see when they look at your resume. Include like your publications on your resume, include like all of those things, your presentations that you've done, because that's going to speak a lot to your skills. Because believe it or not, a lot of people are not good communicators. And a lot of people, some presentations just aren't their thing, and that's okay. But if presentations are your thing, people want that. People want to know that you can interact with audience, you can develop a presentation, because a lot of times some people can't develop and put together a really good presentation. It's just not in their skills to do so. So make sure that you are highlighting a lot of those things. And then, my last piece of advice is, it's so many professional resume developers out there. Like, you got me, you got Olivia, you got Latanya, like, you got all of us on the call. And, it's so many others that are out there. Like, look at the resources that we each have on our website. Like, I know some of us have free resources on our websites, and then, you can pay for sessions, you can pay for whatever. But literally, I think there is no reason as to why you shouldn't be getting callbacks from jobs, as to why your resume should be looking subpar, when you have professionals out there who are doing this and actually helping people and getting results. So, like I said earlier, when I was answering one of the questions, closed mouths don't get fed. They do not. Like, so you keep your mouth closed. You don't want to get help with anything. You feel like, oh, I can do it myself. And granted, you can do it yourself. But if you're doing it yourself and you're not getting the results you want, get some help. And it's a lot of people out there that are here to help you.
Dr. Des, you mentioned a lot of great points. I just want to summarize to those who are listening. When you mentioned to a career summary, not an objective statement. Stop talking about, who you are. Talk about what you want to do in the role that you're applying for, right? Key accomplishments, show data. And I love how you mentioned at the end to hire a professional. I have done that twice, and both professionals I have hired are SHRM certified, SHRM SCP. They are HR gurus. If y'all looking to hire a professional who knows some of the language, you want someone, as Dr. Des has mentioned, who understands the field, and you want somebody who understands the HR language as well, right? So closed mouths don't get fed. Dr. Des, I'm glad that you mentioned that. There's a question in the chat that I want Dr. Des to answer, so I'll round robin back through. So Dr. Des, get ready for that. But this next one is for Olivia. Thinking about interviewing tips. So we talked a little bit about resumes, thinking about preparing for the interview. There's a gazillion questions online, right, on how to prepare for interviews. Give us some of that in-person, practical, what you did to develop kind of not an elevator speech, but to develop the confidence, as you've mentioned throughout tonight, for the interviews that you've had.
Sure. So I think for interviews, you're gonna have to put like your salesperson hat on and just be in there. Like, imagine when you go to a car dealership, right? The person in there is trying to do their very best to sell you a car. Even if you may not be able to afford it, they're going to try and make this car look like it's your dream, is exactly what they need. You're going to look nice, riding in it, everything, like, all of that. So when you're going into an interview, you have to walk in thinking, I'm here to bring y'all like forward. I'm here to push you and progress the organization. And there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. So you still want to take just a little bit of humility and add it to the confidence. But when you're talking to someone, one, like the length of time that you're talking, I say, like, if somebody says, tell me about yourself, don't talk for 5 minutes. After about, I think maybe the 2-minute mark, that's probably when most people's brain shuts off. I know if somebody's talking to me about their background and everything like that, if it's longer than 2 minutes, I might be thinking about what I'm going to do after this. So, you want to keep it brief. But also a way to prepare and really to wow people is take time and do your research on the company. So every interview shouldn't be the same. You should be able to go in an interview and say exactly how you could improve a program, and say a program or project by name. So if you're going in and you're like, oh, I see that you have this health equity project and this is what you've done in the past year. I really enjoyed reading everything that you've done, and I think it's great, but here's some things that are missing, and here's where my skill set comes in. And now you're telling somebody, number one, you're familiar with their programs. And number two, you've done a mini analysis to see some gaps. And number three, now you've told them how you're going to provide a solution, how you're going to make it better. So those are the things where, it takes some time, but I promise you, if you do that, if you do your research, you're coming in and giving or saying names that are familiar to the company itself, it shows them that you're a serious candidate and that also you're interested in what they're doing enough to do that research. So those are the things that I would say are some of the key things to do when you're in a job interview. And going back to knowing your skill set, knowing your brand, and also being able to think on the spot. Again, not a tangible skill, but sometimes it's about talking the talk. So you can have whatever type of position you want if you're able to talk the talk. And that's not something that comes overnight, but as you develop your confidence, that should be something that you're able to do on the spot. And also, don't be afraid to say that you don't know something, but if you do not know something, you can tell somebody that you're actively learning or you're actively receiving information about something. So I would say that, even if there's something that they ask you in the interview that you're not sure about, always end it with, but it's like something pending. It's not like absolutely, no, I'm not doing it at all, but you can say, oh, I'm actively learning about it. No one's going to ask you a question about really something you're actively learning, because you might not be able to give them an answer. But those are the things that I think are key to an interview and leaving a lasting impression.
Great. Key to interviews, leaving lasting impressions. Olivia, you also mentioned do your research on the company and know how to improve a program or a project by name. I wish I had that 10 years ago. That's great advice. Students, you're competing against thousands of applicants, and so it's a numbers game. And so as LaTanya, Olivia, and Dr. Des have mentioned earlier, you've got to be confident in this thing. If you apply for one job in one industry and think that you're the cream of the crop, one of 1,000, you've got to be able to prove that. And Olivia's giving you some great advice on how to prove yourself in those interviews. LaTanya, I'd like you to want to shift just really quickly on something you said earlier when you were talking about search engines. You mentioned Indeed, you mentioned train.org. There's probably a host of others that you got in your head. I want you to talk to the students briefly about some job search strategies that you can recommend that will help them in their search, but also which engines they should use, particularly for maybe certain industries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when I started out after I graduated, I started off as a secretary just to get my foot in the door at the health department. Now, this job was paying about $8 an hour. So if you know me, I had 2 jobs at the time. One of the things that really helped me was just knowing just a tiny bit about where I wanted to work before I left school. And so I knew my focus was very narrow. I was thinking the health department and CDC. So I had a very narrow focus when I graduated. But when I started my job search, I was like, oh my God, look at the state website. They have a lot of positions. Like, I can work at the health department. I could work at DHS, which is the Department of Health and Human Services. You know, there were lots of opportunities, ADHQ. So there's a lot of departments within the state that you can work in and use your public health degree. So outside of government, there are private organizations and also nonprofits. Like, we need to tap into these nonprofit opportunities. I didn't think nonprofit leaders get paid so well, but they are really paid. Did y'all look at that? The STAR index. So you definitely want to be checking on Indeed. A lot of nonprofits post their opportunities on LinkedIn, as you mentioned, Dr. Jason. And then I would say Monster. Is it monster.com? Yes, monster.com has lots of opportunities, and you can set up alerts on these systems. And so as you go to looking for jobs and you're like, ooh, I want to kind of stay in the know on certain opportunities, you can set up some alerts. That way they can come to your email inbox. Now, here's my trick. So if you write this down, you're gonna find a lot of opportunities. So when I'm looking for contracts, so I didn't really learn about government contracting until 2017, when I got my first government contract for a 30-minute speaking engagement for $3,000. Like, I thought I was winning, and I just knew there's some more opportunities out there. So what I did, this is what y'all got to do. Google.com/alerts. So instead of me, I'm not sure, Olivia, how you found all of those opportunities in your newsletter and you stay up to date on all these conferences and meetings. Y'all got to check out her newsletter. So one of the things that I do is I stay in the know. So when my clients call me, they're like, how do you know all this? I am a Google alert queen. So instead of me looking for opportunities, these opportunities drop in my email, and then I'm thinking about different people. So, you know, if I have a client who has a niche in research and they are really trying to tap into that next level, you know, maybe going from research associate to research director. So I'm like, okay, what can I find for them? So google.com/alerts would allow you to enter that text. And some of the texts that I've been able to use would be job fairs. How many of you are looking for virtual job fairs? Did y'all know there's some job fairs out here? So these virtual job fairs are out here, and very rarely do people even log in to talk to these employers, talent acquisition managers, hiring officials, headhunters, recruiters. And so out of all of the search engines that are available, I would highly recommend you just set up some searches on different topics that you're interested in. Also job fairs that you're interested in, any companies you're following for alerts. That way, those opportunities drop in your email inbox. CSTE.org has a lot of EPI related opportunities that they post. So depending on your specialty, track and public health, there are so many search engines, but I would say google.com is your best friend. But that Google alerts, I'm telling you, I found some COVID-19 EIDL money for the business. Like, it's all kind of stuff that I just be in. You gotta just stay ready with your documentation, your resume. As Dr. Des talked about, if your resume is on point, then you're gonna be one step closer, because usually these opportunities are first come, first serve. And so if you got your resume on point, you got a template set up, you can easily kind of copy and paste some of those words in there. You can get on any one of these given search engines and get that opportunity. Now, one of the things in search engines, all these websites are really good, but nothing beats networking in public health. If I didn't know Leonore, I wouldn't be right here right now. You know, so I'm in Arkansas, and so we've been connected, and, you know, I've never met her a day in my life, but she trusts me, you know, and I trust her. And so I want to say, just reach out. People are really friendly. You know, just reach out and connect, ask, you know, questions. How are you doing today? That's a start. You know, not, can you do my resume for free? But how are you doing today? Is there anything that I can help you with, Latanya? I see you on social media. Is that really you, or do you have a social media scheduler? Is that a free service, or do you pay for that? Like, how do I get my name out there more like you guys are doing to become these industry leaders that you want to tap into? So enough about the search engines, but it's really about your relationship. And I wouldn't want to leave this opportunity without mentioning Toastmasters International. You might be wondering, like, how do these people really do this talking so much? Honestly, I was not a good presenter at all. I would sweat, my ears would burn, I probably have heart pain. And then my kids in the background, I'm like, oh my God, what are these people gonna think of me? Like, oh, just stressing myself out. But Toastmasters International, it really teaches you how to have that confidence and in your communication skills. So if you can do anything for your career, $60 for 6 months is really going to help you to improve your communication skills, because when you get an interview, they want to see that you can complete one sentence in front of them. So, just having that basic communication skills is going to help you out a lot. So networking is the key. Just reach out and ask, how are you doing today, Latanya? How are you doing today, Olivia? Actually, before this conference, I reached out to everyone. Oh, well, not everyone. I didn't reach out to Jason. I think I sent him an email, but I just said, hey, keep up the amazing work, letting you know, hey, I see you on LinkedIn. So make sure you guys connect with us on LinkedIn to see if we can get you some of these opportunities. Okay.
Great advice, Latonya. Thank you for sharing. Dr. Des and crew, we got about 6 minutes before Lenore comes on and shares some things before we close up. This has been a very fast 50 minutes. Probably because all of y'all just dropping gems. I really hope everybody online is still taking copious notes. Dr. Des, the question I wanted to ask you is no longer in the chat, but I think I memorized it and you may have seen it already earlier. But Dr. Des, it dealt with a student who is a third year doctorate student, I believe, in public health, realizes they no longer want to do what they've been going to school the last 3 years for. They want to make a transition. Right? How do they go about doing that? And maybe you got some lived experience to talk about maybe being in similar shoes. I know I do, but I want you to share with the student and then other students who are listening, how to make a transition when you've been kind of in a space so long, it makes sense to finish, but you don't really want to go that route.
Yeah, so I think that one thing I love about public health is that it's such a broad field. And it's so many different areas that you can go into. Like you can go into developing programs, you can go into health policy, you can go into data analysis. You can go into all of these different areas. Even like I've seen people go into DEI, health equity, like environmental health. It's so many areas that you can go into. And then like Latanya, tech, like it's just a lot. So one thing I would say is that one, know that you're not limited in your options just because like, oh, I'm getting my DRPH, I'm in my third year, I'm almost done. And I want to switch and do something else. Know that you're not limited in just staying in, whether it's in public health or whether it's in whatever area that you're currently doing your research in. I think that, I think that I remember her saying in her message that she wanted to do something that really reflected her research interests a lot more. And I think that something Latanya just mentioned too is like your resume, making sure you have your resume up to date and on point always, because if you stay ready, you never have to get ready. So that's I would say is the first step, is looking at your resume and seeing what transferable skills you have on your resume. Because a lot of times you have your resume, you have your job duties listed, you have the things that you do, but you're not framing it in a way that is going to catch the attention of the employer in whatever other field that you want to get into. You're framing it in a way that you're looking at it from a perspective of your current field. And that's not going to get you the interview. It's not going to get you the job if you're trying to do something different. So I think that one, looking at the transferable skills, and some things I like to do, like if you're looking at, let's say, I have my resume pulled down in front of me and I'm going to, I'm seeing a job that I'm interested in. I'm on Indeed, following everything Latanya told me to do to find these high paying jobs. And I see jobs that I want. So I'm going to pull out, and I like to print stuff out. So I'll print out the job description, and then I'll look at the job description, every little bullet that they have in there, and then see, okay, do I have this on my resume? Do I have that on my resume? And just use it as like a checklist to see what do you have and what don't you have. And then frame it. And the language that they use in the job description is the language that they want to see on your resume. So think about that. Like I like to say the job description is your cheat sheet. Like it is your cheat sheet to getting the job. Like make sure that your resume is aligning. Like don't lie on your resume. Do not lie. But make sure that if they ask for skills within a certain program, they're asking for SQL or SAS or whatever that you have, and you have those skills, whether it's entry level or whether you do this for a living. Make sure it's on your resume. You can put SQL, like you don't have to go into depth and say you got entry level skills. Like just put SQL on there, like in your skills section. So just kind of making sure that your resume is shaped for the positions that you want. And thinking about too, like, if it's a different research area within public health that you're trying to move into, like that's easy, and you're already doing research in the area, highlight that research on your resume. That's what you want to highlight. So like my jobs have been like, so I started out doing programmatic work. So I was designing programs. I was working with state departments of health. So like Florida Department of Health and Georgia Department of Public Health. And I switched over to health policy, totally different. And I did that because, like I said, in public health, a lot of things are intertwined, and a lot of things piggyback off of each other. So I noticed that a lot of things we were doing was hindered by policy. As far as our programs were concerned. So I was like, you know what, I need to learn more about policy. And rather than taking a course, I was like, somebody need to pay me to learn more about policy. So let me tweak this resume, look at my transferable skills of a health policy analyst that I've gotten, and let me throw my resume out there and see what happens. And I got hired as a health policy analyst. And, and it was because I leveraged those skills, those programmatic skills that I had. Like, I may not have analyzed like legislative policy, like in depth, but I've definitely reviewed it to, inform my programs. I've definitely been aware of it. So it's just little things like that you have to keep in mind and think about, that are those transferable skills that you can use to get the job. But I think that you definitely, if the field you're interested in, make sure you have your resume tailored to that field, tailored to those job descriptions. And honestly, if you're not getting any traction, like I said before, don't be scared to get help from someone that's in the field that's doing those things that you want to do. So don't be scared to get help. Don't be scared to go out there and do it. And keep your resume updated all the time. Like I said, you stay ready. You don't have to get ready, because if you got your resume on deck, when someone asks you, like you could be at a conference and they could ask you, oh, send me your resume. You better have it ready to go, like right then, because like a week later, they probably going to forget you. And so, just making sure that you are staying up to date with those kind of things.
Dr. Des, thank you. Stay right there, because I want you to talk about how students can get a hold of you, right? Should they have some additional questions? And then Olivia and then LaTanya follow up with how students can reach out to you.
Yeah, so you can find me at www.youngblackandprofessional.com. I'll drop it in the chat too. So that's my website. You can get in touch with me there. Email is info@youngblackandprofessional.com. So info@youngblackprofessional.com. You can email that. I'll get back with you if you have any questions, but I have a lot of free resources on our website. We have newsletter on our website. And then I have online courses as well, tailored to like resume development, cover letter development, interviewing, all of that great stuff on my website too. So definitely do that. Sign up for our email list. That's the best way to stay in touch and just in the know about different things going on with myself and with Young Black and Professional.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Des. Olivia, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, LinkedIn is where I'm at. I'm always there all day, every day. So if you want to get a hold of me, you can either send me a message on there, or you can send me an email at livecareerservices@gmail.com. Website is loading, so anybody can expect that to be posted within the next couple of weeks, but I will also post my business page on LinkedIn. That's basically a page you can go to if you want to find jobs. I'm posting jobs again all day, every day, so that you're going to find something on there that you're interested in. But yeah, I think I put my LinkedIn profile in there, so feel free to send me a request and feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Olivia. Be sure y'all go back through the chat